Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never been into one of my lives, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And for those of you who have hung out with me, I'm so grateful that you pop in and listen to me in that monetary spiel that I do. And it's not just a spiel because I actually put some love and energy into that greeting, but it is in the repetitiveness. And if you hang out with me for any length of times, and I know some of you have been with me for years now, that you do know that I have 5 seconds to catch attention, right? To catch someone's attention before they just scroll and they're gone. So if you are, right, catch somebody's curiosity, maybe they'll give you an extra 5 seconds. And in that extra 5 seconds, you never know in the experience what can come of it, right? What can come of it? And this topic that we have this week of purpose, it's a big one, you guys. This word purpose, and I think this whole process of these words, I had an idea. I was going to set a set of cards, but it's going over those lessons. It's taking in new lessons. It's looking at different perspectives. It's taking those lessons, right? And those lessons are, to pay attention, to um, take mentorship in what you love and in what you want and what you need, right? And that's not something I would have done, say, 10 years ago. Right? You might think I'm independent and a lone wolf and right. I kind of, maybe that's a little bit of my badge of glory, right? That prime example of the experiences that we have in our lives. And believe me, right? I know a little bit about some stuff, right? But I don't know everything. I'm not an expert. There are people on the topics that I delve into. There are people I take lessons from. They are the experts in these topics, and I could spew off a lot of them, right? So that you can clearly see. But the idea is for you to find your own mentorship. And I'm grateful that you give me those extra 5 seconds, right? And in saying that, maybe I caught your curiosity and you'll hang out with us for a little while as we have picked our eighth word since I started this. We have 60 something odd words here. I'm taking 54 of them and I'm putting them into a set of cards. But in these lives that I'm doing and set again into a podcast, so if you miss any of them, you can just go into my playlist and you can just, right, you can find the live there. But the idea is, right, to make a set of cards. But I got this word purpose. Oh my goodness, right? I was avoiding because I knew where the word forgiveness was, and I'm trying to get that word. But to get this word purpose, I really felt that pressure to actually work on that word. It's not like I had my heels in the sand all the way. It's just that I wanted to know myself. I wanted to delve in. I didn't want to be the one at the tail end of the ducklings in the pond. I wanted to be up in the front, right? Again, maybe it is that lone wolf independent, right? It is. But that's for myself, and that's my programming, and I can't apologize for that programming because that programming has got me so far in this journey. And I don't think without some of those ingredients in my life that I would even be sitting here. And so when we talk about purpose this week, it is in that evolving, in that evolution of myself, in that better realizing that I get to decide, like I get to feel this out. I get to listen to different perspectives out in the world, and I get to choose for myself. And all along, ever since I started my channel, and you guys know me, right? I've gotten myself into doozy situations, right? And I've just stumbled over whatever obstacle has gotten into my path. I have procrastinated in lots of aspects of not only my dreams and my goals, but in my personal life, right? But at the same time, right? Finding my purpose as I'm finding myself, as I'm discovering myself, as I'm giving myself permission, as I'm creating a life. And even though this life doesn't look dazzle and amaze, but it has aspects of dazzle and amaze. And I can see parts of this life fitting so good into a life that I aspire to, right? And this just isn't about my life, you guys. And that's when we're talking about purpose, right? And this is so important. And yet, this just came to me just a few minutes when I was looking for this, right? I was looking for this. It's kind of like my security blanket that has to be sitting here when I do my live so I can lift it up in any moment that I should need it. And I didn't have to look for it. But give me 1 second here and let me see, because I may need a little bit of jog in that memory, right? Of yes, yes, the lessons in my life, the moving forward, in expanding myself. That was all unintentional in the beginning, right? All I was looking out was to get out of a sticky situation, to relieve some of that horrible stress that I was under financially and emotionally. Like, things were going on even before I woke up to any of these ideas. And again, it was purposely to put me in that frame of mind because, right, when you so much want to move forward, you'll do anything. You'll adapt and conquer. You'll hold on to any string, I was going to say hope, but you're so just living your life and just digging yourself into such a bigger hole because you're not aware of what you're doing. I wasn't aware of what I was doing. This had nothing to do with purpose. But all of this leads into my purpose. And it started, with probably when I lost all that weight and realized that some of those perspectives I had my entire life were untrue, that my foundation was pretty shaky, and I was taking myself into relationships, right? I was stepping into territories that I wanted so much, but I wasn't emotionally capable of holding on to those characters because I never had that experience before, right? Nobody ever sought out my friendship or my console, my love, right? Nobody ever thought I was smart or beautiful. Maybe they did if they got to know me, but that was such a rarity, right? Because we know what it's like to be And it's not an aversion, it's an uncomfortableness, isn't it? It's like when somebody in a wheelchair walks or wheels down the sidewalk and you're walking in the opposite direction. And somehow we're looking up at the trees or we're looking at the sidewalks or off to the side, right? We spotted them, right? But we're not having those connections because we're not allowing ourselves to, because we have these idealisms for ourselves, right? We have expectations of what perfection is. And even though nobody out there in the world is perfect, that every single one of us has a handicap, but that handicap could be emotional, economical, it could be physical, right? It could be social. And we don't know that because we talked about that because we've never experienced it anymore. We didn't even know it was a possibility. And those are the lessons when we stumble onto those realizations. So this started for me a long time ago because I was 27 years old when I lost all that weight and started waking up to some of those ideas, but I didn't wake up totally. But those symptoms, those were there, those lessons were there, those opportunities to make choices were there, and I totally ignored them, right? I pushed them away because I was too imperfect, maybe. I felt out, right? But this is all things that we learn as we move along in taking in the lessons. And, I never took any lessons and I jumped into relationships and, you know, didn't mean to, but I am guilty to contributing to those relationships that failed, right? I'm guilty of that. But I'm just as guilty as making the other person feel that it was all them, right? That possibly I didn't have a part in it. But in the background, in my mind and in my emotions, I'm going, what did I do? What I could have done better? And I'm stumbling over myself, not understanding that some things are just meant to be. And I probably should have made that choice or made a different choice somewheres along the line. And I didn't. And so life, right? In order to get me back on the right track because I'm going too far down a side branch, right? Gives me a lesson, gives me an experience, right? To help adjust me and get me back. And then sometimes, right, in that process, we stumble onto things. And it's just the little bites, the little tidbits, the little light bulbs, the little wow, right? Like, and then slowly, like I said, it's like a snowball coming down a mountain, and that snowball, right? It just gets just bigger and bigger and bigger. But as it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, it's not just getting bigger in mass, right? It's getting bigger in weight. It gets bigger in what it means. It gets bigger because you start having realizations about yourself and you have realizations about others, and you have to trust yourself because your entire life you trusted yourself and you survived. Right? You got through. So it makes sense that you're going to trust yourself above anything or anyone else, right? But as you take the lessons, right, it's hard to not see, right, that it was in this idea of how they call it programming, right? They call it they and it is in the imprint, and it is in the traumas, and it is in those dynamic relationships that we have, right? And it is, in the end, the limiting beliefs that are the byproduct of those experiences, right? And so they say, that you can never get past that 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 young where that trauma was there, like that's hard because in those first 7 years of your life, this is what makes up your being. And I would have to agree, right, with that, only because of my own dynamic upbringing, my own dynamic relationships with even within my own family, right? But what I wanted to talk about the goals, because I see I'm going down a side branch there, and if you hang out with me, I'm going to do that because I'm an explorer, right? It's important to explore. And if you see me exploring the topic in the moment, it's got to be genuine, right? Like that kind of stuff. It can't be rehearsed. But like 5 minutes before, and I was just gonna pull it here just to jog my memory of it, but I remembered that it was like that idea of when I lost all that weight and I was given that amazing gift that started me on this journey, right? Maybe even then it didn't start, but as far as I've worked through, this was one of those moments in my life. And it was such a gift. And it was a gift that I didn't search out because I didn't know it was a possibility. I had had a gastric bypass. Hello, Melvin. A gastric bypass, right? They called it stomach stapling in the 80s and 90s. I had a great doctor, Dr. Rahman. He was an East Indian gentleman, and he was old, old, old when I first started um, letting him take care of me. When I've been in Winnipeg, been my only one in doctor, and I haven't seen him in over 20 years. He's been retired, or maybe he's passed away now. But he wasn't a big believer in drugs and stuff. He would always, if I ever went with him to see him with an ailment or anything, he'd always just say, "Oh, Cindy, go meditate." Right? Go for a walk. Right? So I was very, very surprised that he started the process without telling me. And then when he did get some positive um, feedback that might be a possibility for me, because he didn't want to disappoint me, right? He'd much rather me not know that it was a possibility and not know what I missed than get my hopes up and then have it dashed in the end. But he would thought, I don't know, maybe he had some friends who worked in this industry of right, because I think I was the very last person in Winnipeg to have that operation. They brought it back, but now they do it with like rubber bands and stuff, right? But it was to lose weight. I had gotten myself to 311 pounds. It ties to my purpose. I'm going to get to it. This isn't a side branch. I intended to tell this story, right? I got to 311 pounds. My dad had congenital heart disease. It ran in the family, hardening of the arteries, strokes. He had angina. He was on medication for as long as I can remember, as long as I had a memory, right? My mother had rheumatoid arthritis. His diabetes was in the family. My mother didn't have diabetes, but her mother had diabetes. Her mother was blind and didn't have any legs. I have two sisters with diabetes. I have more arthritis. And I didn't have any of that. But because it was in the family, because it was in my right genetics, that at 311 pounds, I was a candidate for the operation because they thought of it as an investment in me, right? They invest this little bit of help now, right? Which in the end it was everything, but in the moment, right? I was still confused of it, and it was scary going in for an operation. But when he told me I could have the operation, I was ecstatic. He told me I had to lose 50 pounds. Lost that 50 pounds in a month, right? Passed all the tests, and I had the operation. They invested that money into me, and this amazing doctor, family doctor I had, Dr. Rahman. He knew exactly what I needed. He knew I would never have been able to do it on my own because I had never known anything else. As a child, I was an obese child, and now I was an obese adult. I lost 160 pounds in like 8 or 9 months. I lost a lot of weight. I didn't realize that when you lost that kind of weight, that things didn't go back the way they were supposed to, right? And again, my doctor went through um, all that trouble to make those calls and to be my advocate for having plastic surgery. And again, this province that I lived in invested in me again, right? Invested in me again. And I had that plastic surgery. I got to have tummy tucks. I got to have boob jobs, right? I had a couple of them, right? They wanted me to be happy. And I was very, very happy with how it all worked out. But I wasn't because, right? I wasn't awoke to anything. Right? I was just looking to solve a problem. And the problem was the weight, right? Went through the process. I lost the weight. But in losing the weight, there were lessons in that experience, right? We talk about experiences. There were lessons in those experiences that woke me up to things like it's what's in the inside, Cindy, that counts, not what's on the outside. That's what my grandmother would used to say to me, and my father used to say to me, right? Because I was an obese child and they were trying to make me feel good and make me feel positive about the way I was. But then, being all of a sudden I'm a skinny person from 311 pounds and I've got these guys all over me. I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to deal with it. I had never even eased into relationships or anything like that. And yet, right? Maybe, right? I suspect I was a good looking girl because, right, I just flies to poop. I tell you, right? And I realized I had to get married right away. I had to pick somebody right away because otherwise I was going to be in big trouble. Great choice on my part, totally unaware. I married the most amazing man, and there were the most amazing lessons in that marriage, right? Yes, if you've never known, I was married. I was married to a gentleman in the military. I loved him dearly, right? But we were different and we weren't growing together, and he wanted me to have the things that I wanted in my life, and I wanted him to have the things that he wanted in his life, and I certainly wasn't going to attach myself to anybody who didn't feel the same way, right? And it was a good marriage right up to the very last minute. It really was. But in losing that weight, right? In losing the weight, so it's going down another side branch. But in losing that weight, I wanted to give back to this province because they invested in me. They put that money into making sure that I didn't get heart disease. And yes, those were gifts for me too. That was a reward in the reward just for me too. But it was also something for the government to keep me off of the medical system. Can you imagine if I had heart disease or diabetes or I had to see doctors all the time? And I stayed off the system. Like I said, Dr. Rahman, he was my only doctor, and I haven't seen him in 30 years. That's not to say that I haven't had to go right to the doctor, go to the hospital, right? There were instances that I had to, again, experience this. And there were lessons, huge lessons in those too. But in that beginning of the idea of my purpose, it started back then, right? To reward the kindnesses out there. Like somebody did me a huge kindness, turned my life around, let me have a different perspective, let me see different potentials and different possibilities, right? And marriage didn't last. That was painful. It was really hard. And I had let my walls down in that relationship. And as strong as I am, right? As lone wolf as I am, that was hard to do. But I did it fully in that relationship because I loved him, I trusted him, I filled him out, I knew him, right? And I felt that love. Like even today, I feel that love. But I never questioned, right? You let it go. You hear it all. You let it go. If it comes back, it's yours. If it doesn't, it never was. So we played that game, tag, for another 10 years until one day I said, don't ever call me again. There were lessons in that. And there was healing in that. It was exactly what I needed. It wasn't what I wanted, right? I would have given him as many chances as he wanted, right? He had post-traumatic stress disorder, right? And we were not growing together. It had become a problem. There was a 10-year age gap. It didn't seem like there was a problem in that, right? But I never asked in the end what it was all about. I just said, okay, it is what it is, right? But I always left myself open to the possibility that, you know, he would come back. And now I hear his mother just passed away. And, I thought of maybe sending him a message and, right, sending him my sympathy. But again, I truly am sorry his mother passed away. But that idea of sending him a message, that was selfish. That was for me, right? That was that thinking of the possibility of just opening up that line of communication because that cutoff was my choice. But I needed that cutoff because I wasn't moving forward. I wasn't moving anywhere. So I was staying right where I was, and I was playing that tag game, and I would have played that tag game for my entire life. And how fair is that to me? And how fair is that to him? We would never have been able to have, and I wouldn't be here right now, right? So, in these lessons, right, in these experiences that I have, each one led to the next one. And so I come to a lesson. It was one lesson. It was one lesson. It just cracked it right open. And it was the lesson of your purpose comes from your pain. That was the lesson. And I'm going, oh my goodness, my greatest pain, right? It wasn't even the failing of my marriage. And I loved my husband. It was devastating. It made me trauma bond with my sister. And that was hard too, because wow, that's an experience and a lesson for another conversation. Because I could go down that side branch forever, right? But that idea that as you're getting the lessons, you get to learn, right? And then I learned that one lesson that your purpose comes from your pain. And there was no question. The most painful day in my life, I'll never forget it, right? I'll never forget that that demeaning, physically painful, emotionally painful, the rejection, the brutality of it, the coldness of it. the misunderstanding of it, because there was a lot of misunderstanding, right? It opened up an opportunity for me to truly understand, not just, right? Who wants to go and back into those bad moments and those bad memories? Nobody does, right? But I think a lot of our problems are sitting there, right? I haven't been diagnosed, but I'm assuming because I'm a sporty pants, right? That it's complex post-traumatic stress disorder, right? From my childhood, um, that I have some strong traits, but because I had that balance of my father, right? My father, his lessons, his quotes, his beliefs, that even though he didn't teach me his beliefs were in his everyday living. And in my lessons and in my experiences, when I bumped into that lesson of your purpose comes from your pain, it was like a chick, right? Starting to break out of that shell. I'm right. I got my beak in there and I'm hacking away, but it takes a while. And there were ideas that kept coming in, and that idea that it's not that dynamic relationship with my mother that's the problem, right? What the problem is the residue and the effect and the programming that, right, that I couldn't shake, that I took on as my own because I was expected to hold it, and I didn't have those lessons. I didn't understand, right? And but again, and everybody's lessons are going to be different, but I'm just kind of brushing over some of my lessons to let you know how my purpose arrived, right? And this is an Evan Carmichael lesson. He was somebody who was extremely instrumental in my movement forward. Now, when I first moved in that direction, again, like I said, I thought it was that dynamic relationship that I had with my mother. And then slowly I get to understand, oh my goodness, right? I'm highly sensitive. And then we have to go deeper. And I realize, oh my goodness, right? I'm empathic and I've trauma bonded, not just with my father, but I trauma bonded with my sister. I've had relationships, many relationships with narcissists, but narcissists come like different chocolates in a chocolate box. They all look different, and they all fit different. But because I have the dynamics of the two extremes in my own family, I got both lessons. And I think that's what saved my butt, is because I was in the middle, right? I was in the middle. I was in the next stage, I believe, in evolution. I have to say that because it came to my mind just there, and you might have seen that stall because that it's right. And when things in the live, because when it's so there, I try to express it, right? But I believe this is an evolutionary process that we are in right now. And it's all about assimilation. And I learned this from my lessons. And yes, purpose comes from the pain, right? It comes from my traumatic experiences, and maybe, right, and I say, well, there are people out there who see people getting blown up, or see terrible things, or right, and then they get messed up that way too, and my things are just right. like like domestic things and rejection and bullying and right, just a whole bunch of little stuff, but it's still extremely painful, especially for somebody who's been programmed to be empathic, right? That's so hyper vigilant and so hyper focused, right? But not focused on the right things, because all I was focused on was my safety. And I saw when I was only focused on my safety, I wasn't getting any lessons, was I? Right? It's only when my system calmed down a little bit and I wasn't so concerned with my safety that things started to feel better. When I started to feel better, right, then I started to take in the lessons a little bit. And then I was able not only to just do great by, right, finding solutions for myself, and purpose comes from your pain. That's great, right? But I didn't know what my purpose was, but I had to grow into my purpose, right? I had to grow into my purpose because when I first heard of this lesson, when I first got this lesson, your purpose comes from your pain. Like I knew where my pain was, right? But I didn't realize that the only way that I was going to understand what my purpose was to understand the pain, was to understand all the pain, right? That's painful, isn't it? Right? We don't want to go back there. Lots of us are traumatized, but it's where the answers lay. And because we do the drip, 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 because we do the baby steps, right? Because I, I, I care. And there are lots of people out there that can help you because you are dynamic. You are unique in the experiences you have and in the lessons you got, right? And the solutions you need, right? Might not come, well, might begin, right? Because maybe you're just being introduced to some of these ideas now, right? But maybe it's just an introduction to the ideas. And now you'll do like I did, right? And then start gobbling content. And I got to pick and choose. And I would offer up that gift of maybe checking out Evan Carmichael's channel because he offered out so much thought leadership in sports, in acting, in politics, in religious leadership, in spiritual leadership. Right? It's all there. Artistic leadership, leadership in engineering, leadership in space, leadership in economics and right, taking care of our environment and depending on your passion, because not only does your purpose come from your pain, right, your purpose should be something that you love doing, right? And we know Cindy loves to yibber yabber. Right, Cindy loves to yibber yabber. And Cindy loves to tear things apart, put them back together. I have a gift of knowing what's right from wrong. Otherwise, I wouldn't have trauma bonded, right? But just because you trauma bond doesn't mean the person that you trauma bond doesn't have trauma. And our traumas, there's no question, rub off on each other. They trigger each other, right? And we can find ourselves in sticky experiences, scary experiences that will make it so that we don't want to move forward. We don't want to know what really happened because it's pretty heartbreaking because I had to move away, right? Live my own life. And I had to tear myself from trauma bonding, right? And that's confusing and painful for somebody who's not ready to release, right? We trauma bonded with each other. But it has to be one person that makes that step, because otherwise neither of us would have made that step. And I wouldn't have been in the situation where I am right now having these conversations with you. And my sister would not be where she is right now. And it's kind of confusing in that, because she's making so much amazing movement in her life, right? She's making, oh my goodness, right? But she's in a very scary situation right now, and it's scaring the whole family, right? We haven't lost anybody in our family since our mother passed away. We are four sisters, right? We are four sisters, and we're all still kicking, right? We're all still kicking. But those darn health problems that are in my family, right? Grateful for my good health. I am grateful for my good health. But if there was anything I could do, right, in that little bit of, like, to give a little bit to my sister, to all my sisters, because this will be tough, right? But that's the thing, right? That's life. Those are experiences. Those are lessons, and that will just crack that shell, right? Right? To the point where I I just roll out of it. I just roll out of it, right? And maybe she can do the same for herself, right? Because lots of us, and even myself, those lessons came even before I was woke up to any of these ideas. Any of these ideas. Isn't there the possibility that that could be the same experience that my sister's having, right? Epigenetically, right? We come from the same parents, but we made different choices, right? Probably a decision that my father and mother made. I'd like to think it was a decision they made, and just not their lack of not understanding what to do and just let us run amok, because we pretty much did run amok. It was an adventure, but it was a mixed adventure, right? It's that balance of recognizing right from wrong, good from bad, scary from happy, angry, right, to calmness, right? So you get to see different perspectives, you get to experience different perspectives. And even though, right, I don't consider that a reward, in the end, it did reward. And so, in my gratitude, right, just like that gratitude that I had to my doctor and to my province that I live in, that invested in me, to Evan Carmichael, who invested in me, to all those other amazing online, right, online leaders in what they're experts in, right, and honor them too. Seems right, right, to give back for what's been given to me, right? I didn't give anything back for that beautiful gift that that doctor and that province gave me, except for staying off the medical system. But I think that's all they wanted. That was all they hoped for, that they were optimistic that might be the case. And I'm proud of the fact that I did that, right? I didn't deny myself a walk-in clinic if I had to, right? There were situations where I did end up in the hospital a couple of times, right? But it is what it is. And there are lessons in that, experiences, right? But if you're willing to have experiences without shutting yourself up. And that's the idea. You have to be willing. You have to be willing to look at it. You have to be willing to recognize when you didn't get things right. You got to be willing to course correct. You got to be willing to listen to others. But at the same time, and most of all, you have to be willing to listen to yourself, and you have to understand, right? You'll know it. You'll feel it, right? Because it's part of you. And so if you can just kind of move along and just feel your way along, your feelings will tell you, right? And the feelings will lead you to your purpose. And, I see that. I do. And so when we talk about purpose today, right, that purpose, I believe, comes from our pain. Because I can see that understanding that one truth has gotten me here. And I got to give credit where credit is due, right? And it's not because I have to give back. It's not because I have to find a purpose. It's because I want to, right? Out of gratefulness for the kindnesses, right? Even though in the moment you don't think it's a kindness, right? When you get those cranks because you didn't listen, you didn't take the hints, right? You didn't learn anything from that experience. You didn't make that choice that brought about that change, right? But if you're lucky and they don't mind trying one more time, maybe they'll just give you the 360, right? And get you back on that road where you're supposed to be. And then maybe be coming back onto that back road and looking back at that point, you could truly see how you messed up, how you got to 311 pounds to start with, right? And maybe find some solutions that might help you have a better mindset to cope with putting in the work. Because it is, right? And at the same time of doing that, still got to put a roof over your head, still got to carry on with the relationships. You have to take the lessons and put those lessons into action. And that is painful in so many ways. And even in the experiences I have right now, right? Even not knowing where it's going to take me down the road, I don't think I need any more evidence to show me that those lessons I received, those lessons that I resonated with, those lessons that I took on for myself, those lessons that I hold on to, but I fail in, because I feel they're important, right? I'm striving for those, right? How could I not want to make my purpose a gift of the same? And so where I started out is not where I am right now, not even close. But I don't think it's even close to where I'm going to be in the end of it, right? It isn't. But I think there's enough experience now to right, delve into this word that I got this week that I knew was going to be a biggie. Our eighth word, right, is purpose. And we'll be talking about this word till Friday. Um, yeah, that's a biggie word. And if there's any word that could fill up a week, it would be that word. But if you could take anything from this podcast, this live right now, I would say contemplate on what I just said about your purpose comes from your pain, right? If you can just give that a little bit of time in thought, right? It'll serve in so many ways to so many, right? And you might find a lesson there that might just move you a little bit, just enough to say, I think I can do one more, right? That wasn't so bad. And that's my hope, right? That's my hope. Because it was a ride in the beginning, right? It was one of those rides at the exhibition that I would never go on ever, 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 ever. But in our ability to adapt and conquer, in our ability to resonate with what we resonate, in our ability to make some kind of choice, to make some kind of movement, anything, right? And just start moving towards that. Maybe that lesson, right, that will get you to your purpose, right, might show up. And maybe it won't take as long as it took me and will take me, right? We're talking because of my beliefs, lifetimes, right? We are creating the best human being we possibly can. And I'm looking at humans now, and because of my love for history, I'm looking at humans as Neanderthals and right, Denisovans, and I'm looking 1,000 years ago. I'm looking at the Egyptians. I'm looking at the Mesopotamians. I'm looking at the the Spanish flu and the Civil War. I'm looking at that. And you're saying life is the worst? It's never been so bad? I think we should be pretty proud of what we created. We could even get to the point that you can understand some of the conversations that I had to learn, right? Because this was all like a different language to me at one time, but I knew that there was something in it, right? Something told me. And I just followed along and I just did it in baby steps and just, right? And just as you move forward, you just start picking up. But that idea that your purpose comes from your pain, but whatever your purpose is, make sure you love it because you may be doing it for a long, long time, right? I'm 61. I'll be 62 years old in a few weeks, right? 62 years old, right? Can you imagine what you can accomplish in your span, in your lifetime, right? I'm pedaling hard, right? But that's my nature. And because I feel like I'm in a safe and comfortable environment, because some of those lessons that I take in, right, resonate with me and they become a part of my life and a part of my affirmations and they become part of my reality. And for me, that's the evidence, right? And that's the evidence that everything's going to be okay, right? And if I can understand that, then I can show up tomorrow, right? With another perspective on purpose. That was a good one, you guys. I enjoyed talking about purpose tonight. That was cool because I like working things out through conversation. I really do. And it's I'm not going to say cuz this is amazing for me, right? Because being highly sensitive, right? Being that lone wolf, I'm comfortable, right? In my space, in my safe space. And if I can be feeling safe and comfortable, then parts of me can surface and I can have more of these kind of conversations, right? But because I am right? What they call an extroverted introvert, right? In the middle, right? In the middle. I appreciate different perspectives. I do, because I grew up with different perspectives. Boy, did I grow up with different perspectives. But those were perspectives were allowed, right? There was no, yeah, those perspectives were allowed on all ends, right? And that's why I'm a true believer in choices, right? Because choices do promote change, but you gotta put a little bit of effort into the choices. That's the idea. Okay, you guys, we'll be back tomorrow on the topic of purpose. It's a little bit better than yesterday, but we'll see. Today, tomorrow's my last day off, you guys, before my holidays are over. Thank you so much. Let me just say hello. Tomorrow's my last day off for my vacation. I'll be back to work on Thursday. Things are moving. Hi, Nancy. Hi, Nancy. I knew you were there, dear. I'm sorry. I was in a bit of a flow there. And I saw Melvin, Zowie, right? There's cute lady Sydney. But seriously, right? I have my tub. It's full of bath water, but it's been full of bath water for like 2 hours now because I've been working on putting my summer closet away, right? Maybe tomorrow I'll bring out my winter stuff. But the idea was to have that done before my vacation was over. So I'm trying to complete a goal, but kind of leaving it at last minute because tomorrow's a busy day too. But maybe I can make it a project, get all my stuff done really early, and just come home tomorrow and again understanding, right? That it's my last day off, that it should be about rest. And I got some amazing rest and I got amazing oxygen and from Mother Nature. It was an amazing vacation. Next year it's going to be even more amazing, right? Sometimes things work out perfect, some things don't work out so good. But when they don't work out good, it's in our choices, right? And in that experience that we had that we can choose something else, right? We can do a little bit better next time, a little bit more leg room. That Jeep Wagoneer or that Bronco, the new Bronco, they're looking pretty good. They're looking pretty good for next year. Or maybe we will do the RV. I don't know. Maybe we'll go to Europe, right? But you won't find me laying on the beach drinking pina coladas, right? Those are not my kind of explorers. Okay, you guys, but that's not saying that's not a good explorer, right? That it's just not my kind of explorers, right? It takes all kinds to make the world, right? I'm a unique, just like you are, right? And I give myself permission to be that, and so you should be able to give yourself permission to do the same. Have a great night. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.